I became popular in StarCraft Chapter 111-120. Thank you all for liking and following. Please support me. I apologize for any mistakes in the translation. You can donate to Casacorn Bank 02535200310. Then let's get started. Chapter 111 Follow. The fluctuation of this person's spiritual power is particularly strange. Sometimes it doesn't even reach the first level of chi refining, and sometimes it reaches the final stage of foundation establishment, which is unpredictable. Moreover, his body has no fluctuations when he doesn't speak, but the fluctuations are more severe when he speaks. What is this repairing? I don't know either. The security guard Xiao Li told me today. Okay, Lian Jining spoke again, and this time the fluctuations in his body are at the perfect level of chi refining. This seems to be the first celestial being that Chu Yao has encountered since arriving at Lingyuan Star, and he must pay attention to it. Shen Yu said earlier that the physiological structure of celestial beings is different from spiritual power, so they can't cultivate it. It seemed that Lian Jining's appearance had shattered common sense. In any case, the changes in his body were seen by Chu Yao with his own eyes, and it could not be faked. Teacher Cheng returned to the room. This big-headed man walked into the reference room deep in the corridor. His slow movements looked like an old man who was over 100 years old. He was rummaging for something on the bookshelf, then picked up a file, put it in his clothes, and went out. Chu Yao's consciousness followed him silently until he returned to the car and started the engine. She pondered for a moment and decided to follow him to see where his house was. Chu Yao did not pay attention to it, but simply hung it at a distance, keeping the distance between herself and the car driving at the level of spiritual consciousness. Chu Yao was in the middle of establishing the foundation. The current escape speed was much faster than ordinary cars. Her figure floated between buildings, jumping from one roof to another. Her consciousness and eyes followed the white car the entire time. The white car turned several corners in Xindu, and finally stopped in front of a large mansion at the southeast corner. This mansion was much larger than the Zhoucheng Shanchuan mansion that Chu Yao had seen before on the 10th ring road of western Tianhai City. If this was a park, the courtyard was lined with green trees, and floor lamps illuminated the fountains and villas. From a distance, people would think that this was a tourist attraction. The location of the mansion was very remote. It was almost the suburb of Xindu. If you went south, you would be out of town. The only difference from the Shanchuan mansion was that there were very few people here. Chu Yao did not see any servants or guards. It seemed that he lived alone. After Lian Jining parked his car in front of his house, he walked into the house with slow steps. In that case, where did he get those slaves? Chu Yao stared at the mansion from a distance for a long time, and finally decided to temporarily return home. Now that you know where the other party lives, there is no need to rush. Since the other party is a monk, if you act rashly, he will be inferior. I am afraid that something will happen to him. She secretly memorized the location and walked on the way back. Xindu, somewhere in the mansion. In a bedroom that was more than 40 square meters, the blonde Zhao Yuzheng lay on his big bed without any love. His entire body had a big shape, and his limbs were fixed with a new cylindrical machine. The machine was wrapped around his body like a bandage, and then connected to nearby equipment through wires, just like a new type of therapy device. After half a day of treatment, he finally woke up from his coma. A woman wearing a slave ring sat by the bedside, feeding him with a spoon and a bowl of rice. Oh my god, what misfortune happened to this young master? The first thing Sun Yu did when he regained consciousness was to confirm his physical condition. Doctor, how long will it take me to recover? It can be repaired in a few days, but if it is completely healed, it will take at least 2 to 3 weeks. And there will be constant review and rehabilitation. The masked doctor stood in front of the bed, wrote an inspection report and talked to Zhao Yu. 2 weeks, half a month? Hey, I'm sure. I just got back from a trip to a small island nearby. It wasn't that fun. I was planning to invite my friends for a drink, but this unexpected thing happened right after getting off the ship. Didn't the person at the auction say that this slave was a flying sword barbarian brought back from the new galaxy? Where did her family come from? A ferocious woman's appearance appeared in his mind. Thinking of her cold, seemingly inhuman gaze, my heart skipped a beat. That look of hers just now must have killed me. Sun Yu unintentionally choked on the food the slave girl fed him and kept coughing. What the hell? Someone, pull me out to fight. Before he finished speaking, heavy footsteps came from outside the door. Sun Yu remembered who it was, so he temporarily stopped his actions towards the slave girl. The door opened and a middle-aged man with gray hair walked in. His steps were steady, his posture was strong, his eyebrows were thick, and his face was serious and not stern and pretentious. Just looking at his figure, he looked like a man in his 20s or 30s, but from the wrinkles at the corners of his eyes, he could see that he was almost 60 years old. Father. When he saw the visitor, Sun Yu immediately changed his expression as if he was a different person and greeted him with a smile. This person is Sun Tenglong, the chairman of Shengxi Group. Sun Tenglong looked at his son lying on the bed, sighed heavily, and waved at the others. You go out first. The doctor and bodyguards went out as ordered, and the slave girl seemed to have been pardoned. And soon, only the father and son were left in the large room. What happened? Tell me. So Sun Yu explained what happened to Sun Tenglong clearly. I told you long ago not to show off too much. It's okay, something happened now. Dad, I don't show off too much because they bully each other too much. Ah, you have a displeased look on your face. Sun Tenglong looked at his disappointed son helplessly, not knowing what to say. He had been busy with his career since he was young, and he only had one son at the age of 40. He was very precious. From childhood to adulthood, Sun Yu hardly needed clothes and food, and he never lacked anything. But maybe he loved him too much. This child often relied on his own identity to be mischievous, which gave him a headache, but there was nothing he could do. What did the doctor say? He said he had to rest for half a month. Then go to sleep. There are too many things in the company recently. Don't cause me trouble. Dad, then what about those two girls? Forget about them. Sun Yu's eyes widened. Don't think I don't know what happened. If you didn't make a move first, why were you beaten like this? Sun Tenglong's tone was harsh. This incident is a lesson for you. I will hold my tail between my tails when I go out on the street. There's a slave ring you bought. Let me go. I've been dissatisfied for a long time. Let go. You said anxiously. That's make me lose a lot of money. Quote, you stinky kid, is that your money? Didn't I give it to you? Sun Tenglong angrily taught his son. Just take 2 days off, take the opportunity, these few days to recuperate and take the money I gave you. Take a good look at a few books. The company will ask you to take over the business in the future. How can I be sure that your father is like you? Sun Yu listened to his father's lesson obediently, and after Sun Tenglong finished scolding and left, his expression immediately changed. Find me who those two women are, he ordered and shouted at his subordinates. Humph, don't worry, I have my own way. This. For mobile phone users, please go to wap.org reading. Mobile reading is more convenient. I became popular in StarCraft. Chapter 112 Refining Equipment. Xindu, Princess of the Night. Chu Yao sat cross-legged in a dark room. This dark room was located on the 3rd floor of Princess Yi's basement, which Chu Yao had specially prepared in front of Chen Qingyu. Although she already had a room, as a priest, it was more convenient to have a place where she could take refuge. The walls of the dark room were made of a very hard material, which was fireproof, bomb-proof, and explosion-proof, and it was hidden deep underground, so no matter how loud Chu Yao made noise. If she continued to practice alchemy in the room like before, sooner or later, she would overthrow Princess Yi one day. Now that you have made up your mind to save people, you must be fully prepared. The phone beeped. Chu Yao looked up and saw that it was the information about Lian Jining sent by Gong Xiaoran. Lian Jining, male, 2456 calendar, 6, was born in Xindu, 3rd mainland. Studied at Yale University in biotechnology from 1932 to 79. Received a doctorate in biochemistry and molecular biology in 1941 and served as a volunteer. In 1951, he was a lecturer at the Institute of Science and Technology of the Steel University. He served as the deputy director of the Brain Science Department of the Iron Dome in 1956. This person is introverted, not good at talking, still. Has no partner, this year is 59 years old. Before retirement, he is still focused on his own research. He is a know-it-all, a scientific researcher. A good man. Take off his underwear even though he knows that the efficiency is really high. However, Gong Xiaoran said that the information that can be found in Maoyantong is also limited. Most of it can be found here. After this person retired, he became a recluse and did not contact outsiders much like a hermit. These information are only on the surface. If you want to know what he is doing, it seems that you have to go to this person's house. After reading the information, Chu Yao thought for a moment, then took out the hilt of the sword from her storage bag and held it in her hand. It was a lightsaber obtained from a major military reorganization earlier. Not to mention the unused guns, bullets, and bombs, this should be the only usable weapon in her storage bag. After her experiment, this thing could not only resist the manipulation of the chi refining cultivation base, but when the user's cultivation base improved, the power would also increase. She gripped the hilt of the sword tightly and spiritual power gathered in her hand. Then she pressed a button. A white sword-like light spread out, illuminating the dark room brightly. Around the white light there were still faint blue fireflies shining. Chu Yao guessed that this was the change caused by the spiritual power of the Foundation establishment period. Chu Yao pulled out the lightsaber, and with a thought, a large purple light shot out from her body. This purple light swirled in the air in the dark room. The crane howled, and after 3 circles, it landed firmly on Chu Yao's knee with astonishing mana fluctuations. A 3-foot-long sword, its entire body was bright purple, its head like a ghostly skull, and the wavy patterns on its ridges were like demons. Chu Yao's magical weapon, the Ziwang sword. The first thing she did after regaining consciousness was to confirm whether the Ziwang sword was still in her body. At first, she didn't have much hope, but the result made her very happy. The desperate battle before her nascent soul was shattered was a success. The Ziwang sword had always existed in the depths of her sea of consciousness, and after the 9th level of chi refining, Chu Yao finally saw it again. This sword was based on 9 purple stones and an ancient iron wood spirit plant. It had used its own medicinal fire to endlessly refine it for 7749 days, and then used the essence of the quartet heavenly ghost that was conjured by Jedi nurture all year round. Moreover, the achievements are forged. The Ziwang sword is difficult to refine, but after refining, it is the most excellent magic weapon. Even when it was born, it attracted the vision of heaven and earth, and attracted all kinds of ordinary cultivators to snatch it. Therefore, only Chu Yao in the Jindan era had to suffer a lot. But in the end, with 1 person and 1 sword, she shattered the world in the Northern Territory. So much so that people and swords were equally famous. And all the cultivators in the northern territory of Fengyuan knew that the Tianyuan ghost and the Yan Lujiwang immortal and the sword were in people. Chu Yao lightly gripped the hilt of the sword. A familiar feeling formed in her heart, and the scenes of the past battles and killings on the Fengyuan continent with swords appeared before her eyes. The Ziwang sword seemed to feel something, shaking slightly in her palm, and it was silent for a long time. The light on it was still quite dim, and it had not recovered to its peak state. But even if he failed to recover, he could still display the power of the half-step golden core. This could be said to be Chu Yao's biggest hole card. She nodded in satisfaction, then put the Ziwang sword back into her body and continued to warm it up. Recovering a magic weapon could not be rushed. Only when her cultivation was stronger could it return to its original state faster. Chu Yao thought for a moment again, then took out a bunch of messy things from her storage bag. A large piece of tattered black fur, 2 blood-red eyeballs, sharp teeth, large and small white bones, a withered poison sac, and 10 spider legs that were like sharp blades. These were all the trophies she had obtained from the giant spider before, and she had removed all the useful ones. When she was in the mine, she was busy cultivating an alchemy, and there was a danger of a large array leaking around her, so the matter of refining weapons was put on hold for now. If you want to save the people of the Tianyuan sect, you have to make sufficient preparations. Right now, she has more than enough attack skills, but she still lacks some defensive weapons. She took this opportunity to forge a magic weapon to protect herself. It would be impossible to finish these things in a short time. She had been choosing for a long time and finally decided to try the fur and teeth. Refining equipment was no better than alchemy. There were alchemy methods, but there were many ways to make weapons, which were different for each person. Not to mention that this giant spider was a monster that Chu Yao had never heard of before. I could find a way to refine weapons with similar materials in my memory to see if it could be done. With a slight wave of his hand, spirit fire flew out, wrapping around the black fur layer by layer. Chu Yao first removed the black hair, then used the sharp weapon and spirit fire to modify it into a long scarf-like strip. A few white spider teeth were also refined by the spirit fire, and turned into a milky white viscous liquid, which merged into the scarf under Chu Yao's spirit power. While roasting on the fire, Chu Yao took out something from her storage bag and threw it in, such as pills and gold, silver, copper, and iron. Feeling that something was missing, she started mixing the formula again. Selected a few little ghosts and threw them directly into the fire. It sounded like a fierce method, but fierceness had its own advantages. Chu Yao practiced like this for about a week, and finally a new silver shining magic scarf was released. After finishing her exercise, she quickly called Gong Xiaoran and told her to come to the dark room in the basement as soon as possible. Sister Chu, is there something urgent that I can't send to Faixin? Fortunately, Gong Xiaoran was not busy today, otherwise, Chu Yao would not have been able to find her for a while. Chu Yao shook the scarf around her neck, stood still, and invited the confused Gong Xiaoran. Come, hit me, this. For mobile phone users, please go to wap.org to read, and it is more convenient to read on the palm of your hand. I became popular in StarCraft. Chapter 113 Underground. Gong Xiaoran blinked her eyes, looked at the mess on the ground and the scarf on Chu Yao's body, and then realized that she should refine a weapon. What kind of magic weapon is this? Chu Yao's secret small scarf. No kidding, I'm kidding too. I don't know how powerful it is, so I asked you to try it. Chu Yao pulled the scarf, feeling that the intensity was enough, but I don't know if its effect will be the same as I thought. Okay, I'll do it. Don't hesitate, I can endure it. Gong Xiaoran nodded. She staggered forward with one hand in front and the other behind. A blue water aura began to emanate, glowing on her body. The aura continued to gather in her hand, and countless water drops instantly condensed in her palm, turning into a slender water sword. Stab! Gong Xiaoran shouted softly, and with an unyielding momentum, Gong Xiaoran went straight to Chu Yao's chest with the water sword. Chu Yao poured a small amount of spiritual energy into the silver-gray scarf, and observed the changes with anticipation. She was not afraid that Gong Xiaoran's cultivation base was not enough. After all, the gap between their cultivation bases was here, and she was afraid that after practicing for a long time, the scarf would look bad. The scarf was inspired by Chu Yao's spiritual power. After feeling the attack at hand, red and purple smoke suddenly appeared on the surface of the water. 2 puffs of smoke instantly swelled, and even the scarf danced in the wind, as high as half a person, blocking Chu Yao's body like silk. There were still ghosts floating on the silk and brocade. If you listen carefully, there will be a scream. Gong Xiaoran's water sword hit the surface of the water, but it could not shake at all. The 2 streams of smoke were still attached to the water sword. Gong Xiaoran's complexion changed, and she immediately stopped chanting, and the scarf changed to its original state, wrapping around Chu Yao's neck. How much strength did you use? 80%. Chu Yao took off the scarf, held it in his hand, looked left and right, and nodded with satisfaction. It looks very good, looking at it like this. It is estimated that at least it can completely resist the explosion of a cultivating Qi monk. Even if you encounter a Foundation establishment cultivator, it can be used as a backup to prevent ambush attacks. She was about to chat with Gong Xiaoran for a few more words, but the other party's face suddenly changed, and she couldn't help but sit cross-legged on the ground and adjust her breathing. Chu Yao was shocked when she saw black smoke rising from her arms. What's wrong? What's the problem? Your scarf is poisonous. Gong Xiaoran gritted her teeth and squeezed these words, her forehead was already sweating. Ah, Xiaoran, wait a minute. Chu Yao immediately took out a detoxification pill from the storage bag and stuffed it into Gong Xiaoran's mouth, then touched a few acupuncture points on her body. Used his spiritual power to guide and distinguish the meridians. After working hard for a long time, he finally drained the poison from Gong Xiaoran's body, and his entire body lay limp on the ground. She looked at Chu Yao with resentment. If you want to kill me, just say so. Quote, wrong, Xiaoran, don't be angry. Chu Yao patted Gong Xiaoran on the back. If things continue like this, sooner or later, I will be killed by what you, master and sister, practice. Your Tianyan sect is really evil. After preparing everything, Chu Yao set off. 2. Find another disciple. She had come to stay near Lian Jining's mansion a day in advance, and when she saw him drive away the next morning, she used invisibility to sneak into his mansion. In fact, it didn't matter that you didn't need to be invisible, because Chu Yao found out that no one in his family was there, and he was the only one. Originally, Chu Yao had thought about sending 2 girls to take care of the association, but after finding out that this one was pregnant, she gave up on this idea. It wasn't easy for ordinary people to follow a monk. If they made a mistake, there would be a fire. The villa had 3 floors, and Chu Yao quickly went to visit all of them, except for the decorations that were a bit plain. They didn't look any different from other villas. But she didn't believe that this place would be that easy. Standing in the center of the reception room on the first floor with a formula in hand, her eyes were full of spirit. The spiritual consciousness of the foundation establishment stage instantly spread throughout the entire mansion, centered on Chu Yao. The microwave waves of the water in the fountain, the butterflies fluttering in the courtyard, the dew dripping from the branches and leaves. Everything in the mansion was within her field of vision, clearly visible. After a careful inspection, I found something strange. When Chu Yao wanted to push his spiritual consciousness deeper into the ground, he felt a huge resistance, as if a paper knife had hit a hard wall, and he could not move forward any further. Sure enough, there was something strange underground. There were many ways to block the invasion of spiritual consciousness, but this was the first time I had encountered it in the heavenly city and uncultivated humans. What secrets did this Professor Lien have? Chu Yao did not rush to find the underground entrance, but put some small restrictions at the gate of the mansion and the main entrance of the villa. These restrictions were not used to harm people, but to warn them, to ensure that if someone broke in, they would know. The grass outside the house was very natural, and there was no entrance inside the house. Since it was confirmed that there was something underground, there must be a secret passage in this villa. She quickly and meticulously searched the carpet on the first floor, and finally found something strange in the second room in the west corridor. It seemed to be a study. The door faced the window, and there were bookshelves on both sides. The bookshelves were filled with all sorts of miscellaneous books, and there were also cultural relics on them. The strange thing was that there was a thick layer of dust on both sides of the bookshelves, and there was only a small vase. Only on the second floor of the bookshelf on the right was there no dust at all, and the area around the bottle was clean as new. Chu Yao thought for a moment but did not act rashly. Instead, he used the wall-piercing technique and walked uncertainly on the floor of the study. He suddenly became shorter. Humph, there is a way. If she guessed correctly, that vase was a mechanism that opened a secret passage on the floor. But she still chose to walk through the wall because she did not know whether opening the mechanism without permission would cause any alarm. Chu Yao slowly stepped forward, and one foot touched another floor, which seemed to be a staircase down. With continuous inspection, Chu Yao's figure sneaked into the underground tunnel, and after the whole body was in the new area, the spell was lifted. There was a long staircase, but it was narrow, and the surroundings were very dark, not even a light, but Chu Yao could see clearly. This turned out to be a spiral staircase down. As Chu Yao went down, her eyes seemed to light up. There should be a light source at the bottom. She finally arrived at the door. This was a common anti-theft door, the kind that could be opened with a key. Short white wall lamps hung on both sides of the door, and the pale halo made the floor look a little gloomy. Chu Yao frowned. She smelled a familiar smell. It was a smell she had smelled when she was in the hospital. It was like disinfectant but much stronger, and there was also a sour smell of corruption. These smells entered Chu Yao's nose through the crack of the door, making her feel sick. For mobile phone users, please go to wap.org to read, and it is more convenient to read on the palm of your hand. I became popular in StarCraft. Chapter 114 Monsters. Chu Yao took a deep breath. I don't believe it anymore. Is there anything more evil than me in this world? The wall-piercing technique was used again. Chu Yao closed her eyes and stared into it, then opened them. Entering a slightly narrow hall. The reason why it was slightly narrow was that both sides of the hall were filled with transparent bottles as tall as a person. These glass bottles were filled with a dark green liquid, and there were strange things in the liquid, floating around with bubbles. Chu Yao looked intently, her face serious, and she could see that the things in those jars were human organs. In other words, they were mostly human organs, because there were some things that Chu Yao could sense at a glance. Someone's brain, severed hand, spine, heart, eyes. There were still some Chu Yao couldn't remember. Like a basketball covered in long black hair, rushing up and down with the dark green liquid in the bottle, the hair all over the body swaying with the current. Chu Yao's face was a little ugly. She could guess what Lian Jining was going to do to buy slaves. But no matter what you do, the most important thing is to save people first. There were a total of 5 doors in this hall. Chu Yao's consciousness was roughly swept away, and the breath of a living person was found in the second and third doors. Without further ado, she tiptoed and jumped over the trinkets and pipes piled up on the floor of the hall and rushed towards the second door. This time, without going through the wall, Chu Yao pushed the door open and walked in. The scene in front of her made her pupils shrink. There was a living being inside the door, but Chu Yao didn't know if it could be counted as a person. It was a human-like creature that was more than 3 meters tall. At this moment, he has a large and swollen body like a giant bear. The giant bear was paralyzed at the corner of the wall like it had dementia, with all sorts of pipes and wires plugged into its body, connecting to the computer equipment piled up like a hill next to it. If it was big, it wouldn't be afraid of Chu Yao. The key was in its appearance. The huge body had 7 hands, 3 on the left and 4 on the right. Some arms could be seen as human, some had green skin and protruding parts like the skin of a chameleon, and some were covered in soft fur like a bear. The 2 legs had, equally strange, one looked like a giant's foot, the other was made of real machinery, but the knees that were connected by machinery had hard, dark corners protruding in a distorted manner. There were 9 eyes on its face, each eye of a different creature. There was no nose, only a mouth that extended forward like a crocodile. On its head were 2 black spots, the same as on its knees. There were hard horns, the difference being one on its forehead and the other on its left ear, the broken part. Between its limbs, there were traces of being sewn with an unknown type of needle and thread. But the scariest thing was its body. Its body was full of human faces. There were human faces tightly packed together, each with a pained and mad expression. Among them, there were monster-like faces, some with animal ears, some with fox noses, but all of them were equally twisted and ferocious, with only half of their mouths open, as if they were about to roar to the sky. These were monsters that had been created by combining things. Chu Yao's hands trembled and she recognized several familiar faces among them. She probably didn't want to realize that it was possible. One of them was still conscious. "Who are you? Please let me die." Seeing the monsters that looked human but weren't and hearing their pleas for death, Chu Yao couldn't help but clench her fists tightly. Lian, Ji, Ning. Chu Yao's heart was filled with anger. Chu Yao had never hated anyone this much before. She wanted to smash this haunted place, wanted to cry to the sky. But in the end, she gritted her teeth and swallowed the sadness that was surging with anger in her chest. Chu Yao knew that it was impossible for them to live a normal life after becoming like this. She closed her eyes. He reached out his hand calmly and held the Ziwang sword. Suddenly, the house was filled with purple light. With a terrifying spiritual power, the Ziwang sword split the monster on the mountain in half from top to bottom. And its internal organs were scattered all over the ground with a fishy smell and black smoke. Before it died, it did not even respond at all. Only the human face on its stomach was rippling up and down with its breathing. Blood was splattered everywhere. Green, red, and yellow. These colorful bloods exploded under the sword, as if a water ball filled with colors was suddenly pierced. With a wave of his right hand, Zi Huang was pulled back, and the monster that had been cut in half stopped breathing. Chu Yao saw the relieved smile on the beggar's face at this moment. Quote, "Quadruple A." She thought that many people might not be saved, and in the worst case, no one might survive. But even so, she would at least find a chance to bury the dead. But she didn't expect this to happen. Her fellow disciple, Tianyan's disciple, was transformed into a tragic situation where life was worse than death. Chu Yao always thought she was a calm person. She had practiced Taoism for hundreds of years, was used to seeing life and death parted, and had seen too much cruelty in the world. She was no longer a child. She thought she was sane enough to handle everything, strong enough to protect everything she wanted to protect. But the terrifying corpse in front of her said that she wasn't. When they were being tortured inhumanely in this dark underground, they were still eating, drinking, and playing in the city of heaven and man. What was I doing? She couldn't help but blame herself. If she had found these disciples a day earlier, even if it was just a day, one more person might have been saved. If my cultivation base had been stronger, whether it was Yuanying, Washan, or even a higher realm, would I have been able to detect everyone's movements? If. Unfortunately, there weren't many ifs in the world. These people's fates were already determined, and there was nothing she could do about it. She had thought that she didn't care about the Tianyan sect, but she told herself with a pain like a needle stabbing in her heart that wasn't the case. Before she knew it, Chu Yao also had a heavy burden on her shoulders, and this weight became a tsunami-like sense of powerlessness, almost swallowing her. Chu Yao noticed that her Dao heart was a little unstable, but at this moment, she just wanted to let her emotions flow freely. After a while, she slowly suppressed her emotions and waved the flames, burning the monster's body into ashes. She took out a small box containing medicine from her storage bag, poured the medicine elsewhere, and put all the ashes in it. Feeling sorry, Chu Yao's tone was still sobbing. "I'm late." She collected all the cultivators' ashes and walked out the door. "I hope that after the third door, she will not be allowed to see something like this again." Opening parenthesis, closing parenthesis. For mobile phone users, please go to wap.org to read, and it is more convenient to read on the palm. I became popular in StarCraft. Chapter 115 Thesis. Chu Yao walked to the third door in the hall with heavy steps. When she entered, she found that she was still thinking too much. There were living things here, but there were no people. There were only animals. Rats, rabbits, monkeys. These small animals were shivering in the iron cage, and they seemed to be just experimental objects. Moreover, there was no more living breath. Chu Yao did not give up. When she went upstairs, her consciousness could not penetrate the ground. Could there be a secret room made of the same material somewhere? Furthermore, the face of that monster, the people he remembered, and the fellow disciple Ji Yu Shamei said seemed to be inconsistent. She started searching again in this creepy underground laboratory, almost turning the place upside down, but still could not find any possible traces. But she found something else. In the first room, she saw some handwritten documents and notes. The handwriting was very messy, and it was difficult for ordinary people to distinguish, and some places were heavily crossed out as if deliberately concealed. But Chu Yao still remembered the names of many documents: a study on the feasibility of transplantation, the effects of high-energy magic, environment, and energy on specific biophysiological groups, progress in the application of new gene editing technology in the research and treatment of cancerous tumors, the company's innovation and development of brain-computer interface technology, report. These documents covered a wide range. Some were handwritten, some were printed, and there were many proper nouns written on them, which made Chu Yao a little dizzy. But Chu Yao still found something important. The paper that was still written was placed in the middle of the table. The title was very simple and clear: Research on Psychers, signed by Lei Jining. The name was incredibly short and more striking than the long title. Chu Yao picked it up. The thesis had 34 pages, a thick stack, and it was not finished yet. Abstract. The relationship between the psychic power and our celestial beings has a long history, as can be seen from the historical records. It was stagnant and limited to only a part of the Longdi Science Research Center's laboratory. The direction was gradually deviating from the original goal. Humph, what valuables can make Longyun's research go to waste? Without me, you'll lose. Sister, are you writing a summary? Write a diary? Professor Lien seemed to be in a bad state of mind. What he said was filled with jealousy and grumbling towards Longyun. It seemed that he had been a part of this place before, but was kicked out for no reason. What followed was filled with riddle-like discussions and analysis, but Chu Yao frowned, because some of the details were uncommonly true. It was as if this man had dissected a monk from beginning to end. Chu Yao could not bear it any longer, but she still kept all these documents in her storage bag. There must be more secrets about the world of heaven and man in these documents and materials. But now, time is limited, let's study it later. With so many literatures, even if Chu Yao had consciousness now, it would be almost impossible to read and understand in a short period of time. Other than this, there seemed to be nothing special, only the equipment and the computer. Chu Yao also found a medicine bag filled with palm-sized metal rings. She remembered what it was because she had worn it before. These were slave rings which should have been taken from the bodies of all the victims. Even if she collected these things. Humph, this was a joke. Chu Yao counted the number of slave rings slightly, and it seemed to be much more than what Ji Yu Shamei had said. This was understandable. The monsters now not only had the faces of ordinary humans, but also strange races that Chu Yao did not know. It seemed that the savages that the heavenly people mentioned were not only psychopaths, but also other alien civilizations. For example, the psychic power mentioned in one document, and the magical stone beasts mentioned in another paper. What is the origin of spiritual power? What happened to the magical stone beasts? Aren't magical stones a kind of energy? Having children? When we return to Princess Yi, call Xiaoran, Qingyu and the others and let's study together. The heretical laboratory is now empty, leaving only one last thing to do. Take out Nailin Jinin's doghead. Using our Tianian sect to conduct such an inhumane experiment, I will inform you of the consequences. Chu Yao moved a chair and sat in the center of the hall to wait for him to return. It would be good if there was a quick solution, but there must be a tough fight between these two. She closed her eyes slightly, sat quietly and adjusted her breathing, and slowly adjusted herself to the best condition. The Ziwang sword in her body felt the killing intent gradually rising in her heart, and it trembled non-stop as if she was also yearning for a fight. Lien Jining did not let Chu Yao wait too long, and her self-restraint responded. Soon, the sound of a rotating mechanism came from outside the door, which should be him who opened the mechanism of the secret passage. Chu Yao sat still. The stubborn Lien Jining pushed the door open, and when he saw Chu Yao, he didn't show any surprise. Who? Lien Jining asked calmly, still wearing a thick windbreaker. The one who killed you. Chu Yao's arm trembled, and an enlarged version of the soul-receiving knife slashed at him. He didn't even move, but what happened next proved that he wasn't slow to react. The ghost knife slammed into him, and there was a sound of gold and steel clashing without leaving any wounds. It simply tore open Lien Jining's body. The flesh was really thick. It was just a temporary explosion to feel Professor Lien's abyss. Oh, is it a psychic power? In Zindu, there are still fish that slip through the net. Lien Jining touched his chin with a gloved hand. No wonder I always feel strange when I go to the association. A few days ago, was it you? Sure enough, he was discovered. Second-level psychers are still alive. This is really a rare experimental subject. Since you delivered it to your door yourself, I won't be polite. There was a faint green in his eyes. When seeing the light, Chu Yao felt uncomfortable all over. The French order prohibits human experiments, so bold. Aren't you afraid of being controlled by the council or the Yali company? While verbally entangled with him, Chu Yao secretly used the Ziwang sword with his spiritual sense and passed through the hall. The display screen was moving to the blind spot of the opponent's field of vision, chasing after a fierce attack. Hey, is he still a psychic who understands the law? Lian Jining seemed to have a winning expression, as if he didn't care about the delay in time at all. And wanted to chat with Chu Yao a few more words. Understand the pursuit of the old man. The end of this chapter, I became popular in StarCraft. Chapter 116, becoming an immortal. Chasing? Disregarding human life is your pursuit? Ziwangjin walked up behind Lian Jining in the shadow of the debris. Humph, little girl, what do you know? For the success of the experiment, these slaves are necessary sacrifices, Lian Jining said. Laughing without showing any emotion, in fact, if I didn't buy them, they would have been in the sewers for the rest of their lives without seeing light. Forget it, I can't reason with you. Holding the lightsaber, she took a terrifying step all the way. Her body turned into a cloud of spiritual mist and slashed at Lian Jining. At the same time, the Ziwang sword attacked from the other direction with dazzling purple light, attacking Chu Yao from both sides. What kind of ability is this? You are really different from ordinary spiritual powers. If I can catch you, my research will definitely be better. Chu Yao felt the spiritual power fluctuating within him again. His body moved to the left strangely, dodging Chu Yao's attack. She only heard a pop from behind Lian Jining, and a green stretched arm reached out from behind him, smashing the Ziwang sword behind him in midair. Huh? Isn't it spiritual power? No, it's still spiritual power. What kind of energy is this? Lian Jining still had an indifferent expression. And Chu Yao's tricks in his eyes were like children fighting. No. Don't worry about your experiment, old man. I've already burned your experimental body. What? Lian Jining's face finally showed a fluctuation. Are you kidding? What? He suddenly looked like a mad dog. Chu Yao looked at him with a smile and didn't stop him. Even Jin Ning spoke like a robot. Chu Yao had been annoyed for a long time. It seemed that she understood the other party's sore points. You damn dog shit, what did you do? Lian Jining was like an angry fighting cock, arching his neck hard forward with his head on his head, waving his 3 hands around in confusion. His voice trembled along with his body. Do you know how hard I tried? Oh, it's not just that big guy. Chu Yao's face was teasing. Your documents are so messy, I burned them too. Those savages with flying swords don't understand the value of my research. Lian Jining's protruding eyes widened, and the intense anger made those big round eyes red and swollen. The blood on his face turned purple. And the veins on his body, the leader felt particularly clear. 30 years of research, my old man, was destroyed by the hands of you savages. That is the ladder to eternal life. Then, it is the peak of heaven and human technology. If you want to blame yourself. You shouldn't have provoked the Tianyan sect. In Chu Yao's eyes, the purple curtain shone for a moment. She stood still, the spells with both hands raised to her chest changed, the spiritual power in her body surged, and ghosts circled around her, gathering more and more like a hurricane. On the other side of the rebirth, the 9 quiet yellow springs, the desolate souls of the 10 temples, the forest ghosts of the 3 mountains. Listen to my orders. Chu Yao immediately opened her eyes and crossed her fingers to form a seal of rebirth. Turned into a bundle of bloody arcs of killing, as if 10,000 arrows were shot out at once, all the ghosts were silent, continuously, straight towards Lian Jining. The methods available to Chu Yao at the middle stage of the formation were vastly different from those at the qi refining stage. Juyu Wangquandao, one of the pinnacle moves of Yuming, in Chu Yao's anger, it was like a divine soldier descending from the sky, sending punishment from heaven to the person in front of him. Nanlian Jining still did not dodge, still standing on the spot and cursing madly, letting those screaming bloody arcs penetrate his body. Every time the arc cut through his body, Lian Jining would stagger back as if he had been hit hard. On the wounds that pierced his body, a long stream of cold white smoke gushed out. Soon, his entire body was covered in a dark cold air. White mist came out from all over his body. His movements were stiff and slow as if he had been frozen. And his words were inactive. When the last yellow spring hit Lian Jining's body, he fell backwards with a loud bang, dust billowing. This is the end? Chu Yao was shocked. No, it's definitely not that simple. She took out a hand grenade from her storage bag and squeezed it in her hand, and reached out to Lian Jining, who was lying on the ground with her spiritual sense. When her consciousness was less than a meter away from him, Chu Yao suddenly felt that something was wrong, and a strong sense of crisis made her shrink back. But it was still a second late. Suddenly, an invisible and powerful force burst out from Lian Jining's body, instantly returning Chu Yao's consciousness. This kind of force was somewhat similar to heavenly consciousness, but compared to heavenly consciousness, it was more powerful and thicker. Before Chu Yao's eyes, the ancient wilderness appeared in a daze, and beasts roared across the vast land. Chu Yao's consciousness was injured, and her brain trembled as if someone was imprisoned in a loud bell. The damaged soul shook her body, and a mouthful of blood flowed down the corner of her mouth. Lian Jining seemed to have turned into a fan, but the face of this fan had no end, and the invisible spiritual power swept in all directions like a gust of wind, blowing away the white smoke lingering on his body, and he was going to lie, fell on the ground. He picked it up again and stood on the ground again. It's okay, it's a failure anyway. As long as I have you, the research can continue. Lian Jining's head tilted in a strange direction. If it was a normal person, his neck would have broken long ago. Then, an injection tube flew out of his pocket, and the liquid in the injection was like gutter oil, reflecting the sunlight, shining with various colors all the time. I barbarian, let me show you what the true heavenly technology is. Lian Jining smiled strangely and his protruding eyes turned slightly crazy. His strange spiritual power grabbed the syringe on his crooked neck and was about to stab it. It seemed that a great being was coming. How could Chu Yao let him get his wish? He had hurriedly swallowed the longevity medicine to repair his soul, and before refining the medicine, he swallowed it directly into his stomach. While taking the medicine, he did not forget to throw out the grenade in his hand. The grenade exploded in midair, but it had no effect on Lian Jining. His spiritual power was like a wind wall, blocking all flames and effects. On the contrary, Chu Yao took a few steps back under the shockwave caused by the explosion. The grenade did not actually damage Lian Jining, and Chu Yao could only watch helplessly as he inserted the strange medicine into the protruding veins on his neck. What kind of interstellar joke are you making? You can block anything with this ability? Is there any reason? Chu Yao used a tactic with her right hand, and raised the machine gun with her left hand, and the Ziwang sword floating above her head rushed towards Zixia. Ghost shadows were like knives, tongues of fire were like rain, and sword light was like stars. The three attacks converged at one point from three directions, and they were bound to tear a hole through his barrier. This powerful attack was effective, and finally broke through the cracks in the invisible wind wall, and exploded into Lian Jining's chest. But there was only black smoke coming out of his chest, and his body underwent an unexpected change. You, perverts, seeking eternal life. His voice was intermittent, but it seemed like two people were talking, one with a calm face and the other with a howl. The three hands on his body were clearly swollen to the naked eye, as if new muscles had grown under them, and the pile of meatballs supported his three arms. The left hand was a normal, thick human hand, the right hand was yellowish-green, with four long beards that looked like mustaches, the hand behind was the strangest, covered with dark green scales. Covered with sharp protrusions tightly. 3 arms suddenly grew from his body. There was still a sticky liquid dripping down. Quote. It seems to be called Shuxian? In the voices of the two people, a childlike voice was added at this time. His body continued to swell as his arms stretched and twisted, and the clothes all over his body were supported by the swelling, and finally shattered into pieces all over the sky. Then, old man, today I will be an angel for you to see. There were more than 3, 4, 5, 6 voices. Some were like teenagers who were rambunctious, some were scolding their wives, some were like old men who were about to die, and some were like children crying. Their voices were all in harmony. Concert hall. His naked body continued to grow larger and larger, and there were more and more human faces on the surface. The soaring body almost exploded the basement. Chu Yao saw a familiar scene again. His body was filled with many people. Human faces. Unlike the experiment he had seen before, only the upper body in front of him had human faces. But Lian Jining's body had grown into a circle from his waist to his back. These people seemed to be forced into his body and became his strength. The aura on his body was continuously increasing, first, second, third level chi refining. His 2 legs were continuously bulging out, almost as thick as an elephant. When the height of the entire person was at a level where his big head was about to touch the ceiling, he slowly stopped. The moment he stopped, his cultivation had stabilized at the late stage of foundation establishment. Lian Jining's 3 arms were raised high into the sky, his entire face was gaping with him, and he let out a thunderous voice. I want to be an angel. I want to live forever. In the hall, everything in his body trembled with a roar. Glass jars containing living beings and organs shattered in a row with an ear-piercing roar. Dark green liquid rolled and flew along with the flying fragments under the dim white light, forming a terrifying and chaotic movement. Chu Yao held the Ziwang sword in his hand and gritted his teeth as he looked at the gigantic monster in front of him. What the hell? I came here to cultivate immortality. I became popular in StarCraft. Chapter 117 Battle. After Lian Jining was injected with that tube of medicine, except for his head, there was not a single inch of human-like space on his body. It should be said that his entire body was human, but not a person. Chu Yao noticed that his pupils had dilated slightly, as if he had gone mad. Then, the giant waved his left arm and smashed Chu Yao head on. A gust of wind blew in front of her, and one of his arms was bigger than Chu Yao's body. She did not dare to shake it. Her body turned into a spirit mist and dodged to the side. Fortunately, the basement was big enough, and I still had room to dodge. Otherwise, with this man's skeleton, there was nowhere to run. No, there was actually somewhere to go. She could run the way she came, but standing anywhere was not good. He was standing in front of the door, blocking the exit like a hill. The wall-piercing technique had a limit here, it was deep underground, and the layer was too thick, so it could not fly directly through the ground. If she had a nascent soul cultivation base, she might be able to instantly teleport back to the ground, but right now, she couldn't. Fortunately, this person's cultivation had reached the S stage. The end of the foundation is only, so it is impossible to resist. If he transforms into Jindanshi, Chu Yao will definitely run away no matter what. Lian Jining rushed towards Chu Yao with heavy steps, each foot made a large hole in the ground, cracks spread across the tiles, and his huge body felt oppressive. He punched again, this time with his right hand. Chu Yao saw that with a wave of Lian Jining's right arm, the 4 yellow tentacles on his arms stood up, and shiny dots appeared from the tips of the tentacles. She felt the spiritual power overpowering again. Chu Yao hid again, and when she looked back, this spiritual power had left traces on the ground the size of a truck ditch. Under the broken floor tiles, dry soil had fallen out, and the dust made the air in the basement cloudy. Chu Yao still did not rush to move. She needed to understand the various methods of the opponent first, so that she could choose the appropriate countermeasure. After one move, the 4 tentacles weakened, and Yuanying was suffocated on the spot for a few seconds. His entire face caved in and protruded under his breath. It seemed that this trick could not be used casually, and the key was in the disgusting beard on his right arm. Let's see how thick your skin is again. As he thought of this, a light machine gun appeared in Chu Yao's hand, pointed at his waist, and fired loudly. Da 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 da. Tongues of fire and gunpowder roared together, and bullets rained down like rain, hitting Yuanying's abstract body inch by inch with powerful kinetic energy. Chu Yao recognized many of those people's familiar faces, but she could not let her hold back at this moment. These people were dead. Even if they were not dead, it would be better to let them go first if they looked half dead. Some of their faces were smashed by the bullets, and all kinds of blood flowed on Yuanying's body, making him look even more terrifying, but he did not react. It seemed that this could only be considered as hurting his fur. The scaled arm at the back bent and stretched out in front of him, and then Chu Yao was stunned. It began to spin at high speed. All the incoming bullets were hit. Ring. Chu Yao twitched the corner of his mouth. Is it really an electric fan? The left hand has a lot of strange powers. The right hand can send out telepathy. The hard scales on the back of the hand can be used for self-defense. It has close range, long-range attacks, good defense, and has thick skin like a bull. Can you challenge me a little more? As if in response to Chu Yao's complaints, Yuanying's big head moved immediately. His mouth opened to an astonishing size. A laser shot out with a loud bang. However, the aim of the laser was not very good. It exploded into the door behind Chu Yao. No matter where it went, the flames quietly spread. And the laser, okay, you are awesome. Furthermore, it seemed that he no longer saw any tricks from him and he rushed towards Chu Yao like an elephant again. In this state, Yuanying seemed to have a lower IQ. Chu Yao found that he had a cultivation base of the late foundation establishment stage, but he did not know how to use it, let alone use the Tao. He had poured spiritual power superficially throughout his body, which should be the source of his fierce power. This made Chu Yao feel slightly relieved, which was much easier to solve than an ordinary late-stage foundation monk. The overpowering spiritual power was the key. Chu Yao jumped into the air, dodged the falling hammer, and stared at the yellow tentacle on his right hand. This problem had to be solved first. Under the control of his divine sense, the Ziwang sword turned into a stream of light and flew towards his head. Yuanying felt the threat of Zhongwang, and Lin's hand behind him grabbed it. Seizing the opportunity while he was busy intercepting, Chu Yao jumped onto his right arm, flipped his wrist, and an ancient lightsaber appeared in his palm, swatting towards the tentacle. The 2 tentacles shot out along with green blood, and just as Chu Yao was about to use the soul-sucking knife to end the fight, suddenly a warning bell rang in her heart. Her feet were wrapped around something. The muscles of Yuanying's right arm twitched strangely. Then, countless skinless human hands grew out of her body, wrapped around her crotch, and continued to climb towards her body. Drilling through the wall could only pass through dead objects, it could not pass through living objects, but now was a good opportunity, don't give up easily. She used the Ziwang sword to fly back, it was not an emergency, the target was still only the 2 tentacles not far away. With the rising light and the falling sword, these 2 pieces were finally cut off. Just as Chu Yao was about to use her method to get out of trouble, her body suddenly leaned back, Yuanying's right arm made her retreat. Then the other 2 large hands clenched into a fist and smashed down on Chu Yao. At the crucial moment, red and purple smoke emerged from the silver-gray scarf around Chu Yao's neck, and it expanded against the wind, blocking Chu Yao's body. The 3 intersected, and a rumbling sound was heard. Even though Chu Yao was protected by the magic weapon, Chu Yao still flew under the enormous force and smashed into a large hole in the wall. After blocking the next attack, the scarf instantly became dull. Chu Yao thought that if it survived another similar attack from his opponent, it would be completely useless. There was a burning pain all over his body, and he almost fainted from the explosion. You have to move quickly. Chu Yao was about to use the ghost move, but saw that the giant monster in front of him had stopped chasing, and all the faces on his body were howling as if weeping. Chu Yao saw his 2 arms waving wildly from the thin air, and traces of black air continuously emerged from it. The poisonous gas on this scarf was really effective. Chu Yao's eyes lit up, she finally found this person's weak point. Yuanying was still struggling, and Chu Yao seized this opportunity to distance himself from him while swallowing the longevity pill. The flames had just begun to spread in the basement, and half of the area was already in a sea of flames. The scorching air was murky, and the flames illuminated the 2 of them red. Judging from the intensity of the flames, there was no room for Chu Yao to procrastinate any longer. I became popular in StarCraft. Chapter 118 Ghostgate. Chu Yao began to seal again, no longer retaining spiritual power. The mid-stage foundation establishment mana poured out of his body, the entire body exploded like thunder, and spiritual waves were turbulent. Although Yuanying was a little sluggish, he was still aware of the danger. With a groan, a laser shot out of his mouth, this time aimed at Chu Yao's head. The silver-gray scarf unfolded again, blocking the explosion, then lost its spirit in the tremors and fell to the ground. Although it was only for a short moment, it was enough. Chu Yao's left hand hung down below his navel, his right hand was raised between his eyebrows, one finger touching the ground, the other pointing up to the sky. She continued to chant and swung her hand in circles in front of her body. Spiritual energy continuously condensed, 6 feet above the ground. A skeleton-like ghost gate appeared in the dark wind, and solid-shaped ghosts and undead spirits crawled out of the gate. Some were wearing armor and holding short swords, but only bones remained, their tongues extended very long. Speaking of which, Chu Yao and Yuanying were very evil, it was just that one was evil with methods, and the other was very abstract. Another ultimate move of the Nether Jew, Yuanying. At Chu Yao's command, the evil spirits of various shapes rushed towards Yuanying, who had mutated into a giant monster. The target was very clear, which was his big head. Compared to the more than 3 meters tall mutant body, his big head looked very small. The poison had already spread on both of Yuanying's arms, and half of his arms had started to turn black. When he felt the attack of the ghost in front of him, he didn't bother shaking his arms and rushed forward with a roar. Because of the poison, his body seemed to be getting more and more out of control. Skinless arms, legs, and feet grew out of his skin. From a distance, his body seemed to be covered in bloody bruises. Red hair danced unnaturally with it. The movement made it look bigger again. The horse-headed man held a large axe on his shoulder. One of his arms was broken by the laser in his mouth, but his face showed no fear or pain. With the large axe, he cut down Yuanying's neck, leaving a deep bloody wound. His scaly hand was too late to stop, because the tongues of the 3 hanging ghosts were tightly intertwined and continuously retracted. Under his feet, a group of bone soldiers and big-headed goblins with sharp teeth were holding sharp weapons and slashing at his body randomly. Every knife was covered in blood. His arms and legs were flying all over. In addition, there were also white wandering spirits that looked like old men walking around Yuanying's body, occasionally opening their mouths wide to spit out a mouthful of white mist. And the skin that had come into contact with the white mist instantly formed a thick layer of ice. Yuanying was furious and shook his body angrily in the basement while swinging his arms. The raging wind caused a fire to form, and the hall looked like a living hell for a moment. Chu Yao, who was in the middle stage of foundation establishment, could only do this by using this trick, Nigui Men. If it was a golden longevity pill or a spirit stage egg, using this method was the real devil in the world, a ghost walking in the night. Seeing Yuanying kicking the 2 bone soldiers into pieces, Chu Yao knew that this method was useless. She had 2 purposes at once, while guarding the ghost gate, at the same time using the Juyu Wangshen Dao again. The blood-red ghost arc appeared again, and this time, the sound waves were twice as loud. The red whirlwind stimulated the surging fire, and Chu Yao's purple eyes looked like a reincarnated Yama when colliding with the flame waves. The blood was like a rainbow, permeating Yuanying's body under the dual effects of yin-qi and poison. His movements slowed down, and his counterattacks were also sluggish. The Ziwang sword had already been placed in Chu Yao's spiritual consciousness, and Chu Yao had poured most of the remaining spiritual power into the sword itself. And the purple light that burst out made it look like a purple sun. When Zixia cut, Yuanying's big head flew into the air, leaving a cut on his neck. Gui Yin stepped forward, and Chu Yao turned into a turbulent black smoke and flew straight at him. He took out a bag of giant spider poison from his storage bag, pulled out an explosive ring, and along the large wound, put all the bombs into it. The storage bag was stuffed into its body. There were about 10 of them. Even though it had no head, this huge body was still struggling. The previous Yin soldiers and ghost generals had long since disappeared, and there were only 3 or 4 people still dealing with him. Chu Yao hid far away with the demon steps, then leaned against the wall, swallowed a few spider fire pills, and drank lightly. Protect. The spiritual energy in his entire body ants condensed into a circle of protective aura, a translucent body. The next second after the aura appeared, a loud bang came from the front. Yuanying's body was torn apart in an explosion and fragments. Flesh and organs turned towards the sea of flames in all directions, floating in the sky. Blood mist spread across the sky. Chu Yao's eyes were left with a monotonous red color for a moment. It took a long time for Chu Yao to release the aura. Gunpowder smoke, burnt limbs, blood of unknown creatures, various smells mixed together. Chu Yao squinted her eyebrows and barely spit it out. In the sea of flames, she saw Yuanying's limbs scatter, and his body was blown away from his human body. The organs in his body were soaked in blood. But he was still angry. Chu Yao also saw a yellow hand with tentacles crawling towards him with the help of the multiple hands and feet growing out of his body. He wanted to connect them together. The corner of Chu Yao's mouth twitched. Damn it, you're not dead yet. The soul-receiving knife and the Ziwang sword moved towards each other, killing all kinds of people, both his body and broken limbs. Chu Yao also raised the lightsaber and chopped at his head, his brain and blood covered her, everywhere. Damn it, you damn dog shit. After chopping like this for a long time, the man finally breathed his last. Seeing that he was finally dead, Chu Yao let out a long sigh and wiped the sweat off his forehead. The fire was getting more and more intense. She estimated that it had spread to the ground, and it was not time to rest yet. Such a big move would definitely attract the attention of various forces. Better run first. Before leaving, Chu Yao did not forget to look around with her heavenly sense to see if this mad scientist could find the stolen goods. But it turned out that she thought too much. Although there was something hidden in him, it must have disappeared in the flames long ago. Chu Yao hurried back to the study through the way she had come from. As she had expected, the flames had already arrived here. It was estimated that the entire villa would be engulfed in flames in no time. Someone was walking by outside the mansion, someone was holding a phone. And it seemed that there was a fire alarm. Chu Yao didn't want to disturb them, so she cast an invisibility spell and escaped from the side of the mansion. It happened that there was a factory a few hundred meters away that seemed deserted, and Chu Yao flew into a closed warehouse to rest. I became popular in StarCraft. Chapter 119 Xiao Nan. The smell of blood on her body was too strong. Chu Yao took out some messy things such as shower gel and shampoo from the storage bag and cleaned them up in the empty warehouse with condensation. After her body smelled her body again, she took out clean clothes and changed them. Then, she felt a little more comfortable and relaxed. Fortunately, Lian Jining's intelligence had decreased slightly after the mutation, and he almost attacked instinctively, so this battle was not particularly difficult. If he had dealt with the overwhelming spiritual power as skillfully as before the transformation, it would have taken some mental effort to defeat him. After relaxing, Chu Yao began to check her physical condition. The injuries on his body were not serious, and his spiritual power was slightly lacking, but these were minor things, except for a slight headache. I accidentally attacked him mentally before, and my spiritual consciousness seems to be slightly damaged. Whether this is a major problem or a minor problem, the key is that Chu Yao does not have any medicine or methods to repair the Foundation establishment stage consciousness. It seems that this damage can only be restored by resting. She suddenly remembered something, then rummaged through her storage bag to find a document, and read it from beginning to end. Sure enough, the name of this ability is Intent Energy. It was mentioned in the information that psychics belong to second-level supernatural beings with intelligence. Their appearance is similar to humans, except that their skin is light yellow, and each person has a mustache on their mustache. The shape of their head and external organs is the key to their ability, and the shape of their mustache will change as they age. Psychics can communicate with each other using their spiritual energy through the mustache on the top of their head. So the communication of thoughts between groups of psychics is completely transparent. Therefore, no language has been developed. In addition to using it for communication, this type of mental energy also gives them special abilities, such as moving objects out of thin air, which has become a skill that they rely on for survival. Unfortunately, the number of psychics in the known universe is very small, and so far, only 2 ethnic groups have been discovered. One is in the Xi'an system, and the other is in the Kakai system. Chu Yao pondered for a long time with a lot of information. Wasn't this just heavenly consciousness? No, there were still some differences from heavenly consciousness. After all, she had personally experienced the power of spiritual energy, a fierce and domineering power like a wild animal. Chu Yao slowly cleared his mind. It seemed that this Lian Jining had kidnapped a few spiritual people from nowhere, and these poor people had become his experimental products. The universe was vast, filled with wonders. Before, Chu Yao had thought right, in this world, there weren't only divine beings and spiritual energy, but now, in her worldview, there was another kind of spiritual energy. There are 2 types of intelligent supernatural beings, there must be one. How are these classified? Are you online? Big sister, were you taking a shower just now? Chu Yao was shocked. When, suddenly, a child's voice appeared with a jump. Before she entered the warehouse, she had obviously used her spiritual sense to scan around here, but she did not find any living beings. Chu Yao suddenly looked up and found that the person who spoke was not really a living being. It was a small robot. It looked like a domed trash can, with 2 small wheels at the bottom, and 2 arms that looked like springs on both sides. The design of the small hands was unexpectedly delicate. The joints and palms were the same as ordinary people, but they were also made of metal. This robot was not as tall as Chu Yao's knees, and there was a square LCD screen hanging on its semicircular head. At this moment, the 2 big round eyes on the LCD screen were flickering. This should be its face. Seeing that the big sister in front of him did not speak, he raised his arm and scratched his head with that small iron hand. So smart? I have never seen this model before? The robots that Chu Yao had seen before all performed their functions according to the prescribed procedures, such as the sweeping robots in the house and the robots cleaning the streets. However, the small cylindrical thing in front of him took the initiative to talk to her. Amazing. Someone is controlling it behind the scenes. Where is your power source? Chu Yao picked up one of his arms and dragged it into the air, looking around in circles. It hurts. Sister, don't pull me, angry face. Does a robot hurt too? Chu Yao didn't quite understand how it worked, but since it was making a pain sound, let's put it down. What robot? Xiao Nan doesn't understand. @_at. The screen actually displayed emoticons, which made Chu Yao care more about the emoticons than the cute ones. The robot is you. Are you a male robot or a female robot? Oh, Xiao Nan is not a robot. Sigma this year, Xiao Nan is a girl. The robot named Xiao Nan interrupted. His head was confused. How old are you this year? Xiao Nan can't remember. Chu Yao tapped her head with his finger. Is your hard drive broken? If you say no, then it's not. Why are you locked here? She remembered that the door was locked when she came in. It seemed to be a factory, but she didn't know which company it belonged to. Xiao Nan doesn't know. Xiao Nan came here after waking up. She scratched her head again with that small iron hand. Suddenly, she thought of something and raised her hand excitedly. Xiao Nan remembers. Xiao Nan's mother is sick and in the hospital. Xiao Nan will take care of her. Robots have mothers? Chu Yao said that he didn't understand this era anymore. Xiao Nan is going to find her mother. The little robot excitedly waved both of its small hands in a circle in the warehouse. When it found that the door couldn't be opened, it leaned forward as if disappointed, and then returned to Chu in front of Yao. Big sister, can you take me to find my mother? It seemed a bit difficult. I don't know where your mother is. Chu Yao planned to leave. She wasn't good at taking care of children. Xiao Nan knows. Mom is in the hospital. There is a big bed, a TV, and small red flowers growing like the sun. Which hospital is not like this? Quote. Then do you know the name of the hospital? X_X. Xiao Nan had a thoughtful expression on her face. I don't know. Look, you don't even know where it is. What happened to your mom, and how did your sister get it? You go. No, there seems to be something wrong with her words. Chu Yao's head started to hurt again. She felt very tired, and the damage to her sanity seemed to be a little more serious than she had expected. Her thoughts were interrupted, and she felt that she would fall asleep the next second. No, I can't sleep here. It's too close to Lian Jining's laboratory, and I don't know who will be here for a while. Chu Yao forced her eyelids to struggle up and down, and used her mobile phone to send Shu Binger's location. The latter quickly replied, saying that it would be ready in 2 minutes. She looked down at the depressed robot in front of her, and suddenly felt that this little thing was pitiful. Why didn't she bring Princess Yi back first? Normally, Chu Yao would definitely be suspicious and feel that there was some kind of conspiracy hidden there. But she just wanted to sleep now. Why don't you go home with your sister first? There are many delicious and fun things to eat at home, and I'll take you to see Mom when I'm done with work. Whether they agreed or not, Chu Yao hugged her, and then she used the wall-breaking technique to leave. I became popular in StarCraft. Chapter 120 Chaos. When Chu Yao went outside again, she saw that Lian Jining's house was on fire not far away, and black smoke was billowing all over the sky. The surrounding area was crowded with all kinds of vehicles and onlookers, and some people were taking pictures with their mobile phones. Sister, look, it seems to be on fire. Let's go and take a look. Xiao Nan shook Chu Yao's arm. Children, don't look at things randomly, it's dangerous. Chu Yao no longer abused his senses, and his current physical condition was not conducive. She looked from a distance with her eyes, and it seemed that the Yali company's fire truck had arrived, but no action was taken to put out the fire. It seemed that someone had stopped them, and the two parties were arguing in front of the door. She couldn't see any details anymore. It was full of people now. Chu Yao hugged Xiao Nan and sat on a bench near the bus stop, resting her head on her chin sleepily. A red sports car roared towards her, and finally Shu Binger arrived. As soon as she got out of the car, she saw Sister Chu throwing a heavy iron bar. Shu Binger was shocked, but she still held out. Reached out to grab it. What is this? Don't ask me, I don't know. Eyes. Is this the new sister? Xiao Nan greeted Shu Binger. Sister, can you take me to see my mother? What, a robot? Come up with a new trick. Xiao Nan is not a robot. Xiao Nan is 8 years old this year. She really remembered her age. My sister is so beautiful, my sister is so beautiful. Can you take Xiao Nan to see her mother? You can really talk. I have never seen such a smart robot before. Shu Binger smiled and led her to the pilot's seat, and did not forget to fasten her seatbelt. Let's take her back to my sister's house first. When the eldest sister comes in, the back wakes up, let her take you there. Okay. Xiao Nan nodded her head up and down. What is your name? Xiao Nan is your nickname. Shu Binger chatted with Xiao Nan while starting the car. My name is Sha Qi. Hey, no, I'm Xiao Nan. A confused emoticon appeared on Xiao Nan's face. Who am I? A red sports car drove along the road, passing a burning mansion not far away. Shu Binger just looked again, still focusing on driving and coaxing the children. And at the gate of the mansion, all kinds of vehicles blocked the place, and firefighters in orange firefighting suits were arguing with a group of people. Since we are here, how can we leave the fire alone? There are a lot of vegetation, and there is a community ahead. If there is a fire there, can you be responsible? They were holding all kinds of tools, and the crowd was furious, but the group of people in black formal suits in front of them had tightly blocked the door, refusing to reach out. This is not under the jurisdiction of Yali Company of you. This is Professor Lian Jining's private house. He has signed a contract with our company, and this surrounding area is the private territory of Steel Dome Company. The speaker held the phone in one hand with a serious face. His face. Isn't your Steel Dome Company in the north of Injustice City? When will Zindu have your territory too? If you let it go, the fire will spread even more, which will seriously threaten the property and personal safety of Zindu civilians. Your Steel Dome Company, I can't bear this responsibility. The captain of the fire department spoke, and he stood in front of the team members, arguing with reason and not giving up. Why didn't you let me help you when the fire broke out? Is this the style of a big company? Do you expect them to care about us? These damn dog shits? They want to put Ling Yuan Star in chaos so that they can seize the opportunity to make money by going to war. Everyone, look. The Steel Dome Company is stroking human life. In the crowd, there was a continuous yin and yang sound, and some people picked up their mobile phones and started talking. Video. No, the man in the black formal suit also showed a worried look on his face. His forehead was already sweating, and he was under great pressure to lead people here. He had just received a phone call, and the higher-up had issued an execution order. Even though the place was burned, no one was allowed to enter this place. Our Steel Dome specialized fire department has arrived, and we don't need your Yali company's manpower here. How far is Yicheng from here? Even if your fire department uses the maglev train, it will take half an hour to get there. Wait for me. The new capital is about to burn. The two sides argued for a long time, but there was no progress. Only the fire had grown so big that some nearby villagers could not see it. They personally set up a fire department by carrying water from one basin to another, pouring it in the direction that spread. They did not want to save the villa. These ordinary people did not have that ability, but they could not bear to watch their own house burn. After arguing for another 5 minutes, the two sides finally reached an agreement that the Yali company's fire department did not enter the mansion. But they could put out the fire from a distance. If it had happened any sooner, wouldn't it have ended? The team leader angrily ordered his team members to quickly prepare water guns. The man in black from Steel Dome Company wiped the sweat off his face with a handkerchief, but he could do nothing. However, he was just a temporary employee, and his superior ordered him to die. How could he dare to resist? Just stare. He, the fire department, while standing at the door to rest, suddenly saw a group of people running towards the road in the distance. The man in black was shocked and quickly winked at his comrades, half of them staring at that spot. As the other half greeted him under his leadership energetically. Stop, you. He clearly saw the clothes of the visitor. What are you guys from Shixin Company doing here? This area is the territory of Steel Chong Group, and outsiders are not allowed to enter. Ha ha ha, that's right, don't be nervous, big brother. We came here to find something. The Shixin Company employee in the blue overalls replied awkwardly. His eyes swept around, and the man in black thought they were suspicious no matter what he saw. Stop, don't go any further. You told us to stop, we stopped already? The leader of the blue-clothed young man seemed to retort. Our Shixin Company's factory is nearby. What are you doing? After such a big commotion, why didn't you let us take a look? If it burns down our factory, you'll be in great trouble. You hurry. What, it didn't burn down, right? We are the gatekeepers. Who knows how this fire started? It has nothing to do with us how you got burned, but our Shixin Company abandoned, lost important assets, and it might have been left here. We have to go and find out. The young man in blue also had an eager expression on his face. And he couldn't help but lead the people forward. What are you doing? Didn't you hear what I said? The man in black was also worried. What did you do? Are you okay? Can you find such a lame reason? Mr. Shixin, what's wrong with you? You dare to provoke our Iron Dome? This is Zindu, not your evil city or the evil star. Do you really think that we Shixin are afraid of you? I don't know which side picked up a stone and threw it. Go away. The situation became tense. Suddenly, it was out of control. People from both sides started fighting. Someone tried to break up the fight, but they were also injured by the unknown attack. Seeing that the two sides were fighting more and more fiercely, some people were eating watermelons to watch the show. Some people were recording videos and taking pictures. Some people called the law enforcement office in Zindu. Some people even went fishing in troubled waters. They went up to slap people in the company that they didn't like. Soon, the police officers from the law enforcement office of Yali Company also drove over. But because they saw that it was a fight between two big companies, they didn't dare to intervene for a while. So they had to ask their superiors for advice. And the senior executives of the three parties participated for a while. The situation immediately escalated. The situation became more and more chaotic. And this troublemaker, Chu Yao, was sleeping soundly in the car with a big pillow in his arms.